hello there. It's always difficult filming when there's people around. I felt a great urgency to make this video, and I'll explain why that is shortly. I'm in Sauchiehall Street in Glasgow, and you can see the ruins of the building behind me. I think for many people in Glasgow who walk along Sauchiehall Street, they'll pass those ruins and maybe not give them much thought, and others will pass by and look at it and wonder what happened to the cinema that used to be there. Behind those ruins you can see the scaffolding and the white plastic coating around the Glasgow School of Art, which caught fire in 2014 and 2018 twice. And it was during the 2018 fire that unfortunately the building behind me was destroyed. It wasn't totally destroyed. The frontage and the entrance to the old cinema, a lovely bit of architecture, it still stood, but it was felt that it was starting to become unstable, so it was partially demolished. And that's what you can see now. It's been partially demolished, and they've now reckoned that what's there is reasonably safe, and it's not going to land in the heads of Joe Public. But I was doing it, every time I pass this by, I kind of look at it and wonder, and there is something very special going on in there. And on looking online, I think they're actually going to raise this to the ground probably in the next couple of weeks or a month or so, very soon, which is why I wanted to do this right now, before it goes completely. It will be raised to the ground, and there will be student accommodation put in its place. Student accommodation that just looks like every other bit of student accommodation, bland and uninteresting, with perhaps a bare minimum of acknowledgement to the past, with little arches on the frontage that kind of echo arches that used to be there. But I mean, when you look at that, it's clearly a demolition site, and you don't really appreciate what's actually going on there. It's a kind of a whole load of buildings all joined together in a whinny, that whole block. But in actual fact, in Scott Street, just up there, there is the tiniest little hint of what used to be there. So before I get too excited, come with me. Well, this is an awkward place to film, a very steep hill here, and cars racing up it. But the sun's in the wrong place. What I'm trying to show you, it sits just behind me. Can I point at it? In fact, there. You see that bit of dark red brick there? That is the only part of this whole block on the Sauchiehall Street side that gives us a clue about what was actually going on here and what this area is really all about. You know, as well as the brick, you can see some architectural detail in the brick. Somebody in the past has made that look nice. I don't know what you call a lot of that stuff, little sort of castellated stuff almost at the top, or a rectangular pattern. You've also got an arch there. And again, there is architectural detail. It's not just brick. Putting an arch or anything is made to look really good. From here, this little section, it's straight in profile. It's straight, but as we perhaps saw from the other side of Sauchiehall Street, if you look very closely, you can see there are sort of straight bits that are almost forming some kind of, I don't know what the word is, It's not hexagonal because that's like 6 sides or something, but a many-sided circular shape made up of actually just lots of short straight sections like that there. And in actual fact, the building that used to be there before everything else was here, well, that's not quite true, but I'll explain later, was actually circular. This was a rotunda back towards the end of the 19th century, a circular structure. And that's the only part of it that kind of gives us a bit of a clue that that was the case.
We can see that round building in an 1890s map. We can also see that while its overall shape is round, it is in fact made up of a number of straight sections, 16 in total if we include the entrance, which makes it a hexadecagon. Very hard word to say. We can also see that at that date it was called the National Panorama and had a public house at each side of the Sauchiehall Street entrance. Fading to a modern satellite image captured after the 2018 fire, but before the Sauchiehall Street frontage was demolished, we can still see that rounded outline on the left-hand side. Google Street View allows us to see the frontage before partial demolition. While that round building, or rotunda, has been many things over the years, it has always been a place of entertainment in one form or another. It was constructed in 1875, just before the Glasgow School of Art was built. Before then, this part of Sauchiehall Street contained houses and gardens for the wealthy, as we can see in this 1857 map, with 2 nice big houses occupying the whole block. Then, in 1875, the Diorama was built, swiftly renamed the Glasgow Diorama. There was a good reason why it was round. Such sources of entertainment were fairly common back then. Families could pay a small admittance fee and be treated to massive painted canvases that went round the whole interior, totally encompassing them. The topic of these dioramas varied, everything from mountainous landscapes they'd never seen before to historic events like battles. Indeed, the Glasgow Diorama featured the Battle of Bannockburn in 1888, by which time it had changed its name to the National Panorama, or the Great Scottish National Panorama. In a world where the best entertainment was generally music hall songs and dances or magic lantern shows, a world devoid of cinema, radio and television, such attractions were very popular. As Glasgow Live journalist David McLean put it, dioramas were the 19th century equivalent of an iMax cinema. The Battle of Bannockburn attraction had huge paintings hung all around the walls, along with bits of wood and vegetation on the floor. The life-size paintings also moved, circling the audience, heightening that heady feeling of being right there in among the action. Visitors weren't just looking at paintings, they were taking part in the Battle of Bannockburn. An exhibition guide costing threepence tells us that the exhibition was open every day from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m, and that the spectator takes his standpoint on the rising ground behind what is known as the Borestone, from which place Robert Bruce directs movement of his army. Every member of the audience was Robert Bruce. We can in fact see the images that were exhibited, courtesy of an existing souvenir volume held by the Yale Centre for British Art. These images are in black and white and show a huge battle with men on foot and horseback. It even shows the moment Robert the Bruce broke the shaft of his axe on the head of Sir Henry de Bohun. But, and this is quite astonishing, some of the original colour paintings still survive. They are displayed in the Bannockburn room of the Peebles Hydro Hotel, a room kept aside for functions, and gives us a real insight into the wonders and delight of a Victorian panorama. Not long after the Bannockburn exhibition, our domed rotunda changed use and became an ice rink. Hubner's Ice Skating Palace was the first indoor ice rink in the city, one where skaters swan to and fro to the sound of an orchestra. It was also one of the first buildings in the city to be lit by electricity, which made it ideal for housing the next new invention in the world of entertainment, namely cinema. And so, in May 1896, skaters no doubt suffered sensory overload when a movie was played while they were skating. It wasn't an ice rink for long, because in 1904 Hengler's Circus moved into the Rotunda. Hengler had been performing in various locations in Glasgow from the 1860s, and indeed in locations all over the world. It must have been a truly awesome spectacle to see some of their shows. This poster, for example, shows a rounded display area filled with water and boats, while this one shows some poor soul being fired out of a cannon. The water shows were clearly very popular. This illustration from the graphic depicts a performance of what looks like utter bedlam in one of Hengler's shows, somewhere in 1891. This poster for Hengler's real water spectacle shows everything from boats sinking and fishermen catching eels to policemen shooting someone out of a tree. They even had ducks. Real ducks. Must be seen to be believed, apparently. The wonderful water novelty with 23,000 gallons of real water, yes, real water, poured into the arena in 35 seconds. It must have been somewhat exciting and thrilling for the audience, who must at times have wondered if they would make it out alive. But all these innovative spectacles were not enough for a Joe public who now had a new world of film and cinema in their sights. And so in 1924, our round building once again changed use. It may have been a dance hall for a few years, the Waldorf Palais perhaps, but with some additions, in 1929 the Regal Cinema opened. With its grand Art Deco entrance designed by Charles McNair, the Regal lasted many years, indeed until 1979, when it became the ABC. There were a few other name changes, but ultimately it closed as a cinema in 1999, and was then for a few years a music venue, the O2. That is, until 2018, when the Glasgow School of Art caught fire. Again. The site will probably be flattened by the time you watch this video. In its place will be student accommodation that will look something like this.
Well, there we go. As I said at the beginning of the video, I felt a little bit of urgency to make this video before. So sometimes you think about doing things and you keep putting them off, and I just knew that one day very soon I would pass this site and it would be gone, totally flattened. And would have lost any little clue that there was ever a circular structure there. And we've already lost a rather grand entrance to the Regal and the ABC cinemas. And yeah, Glasgow at the end of the day will have lost another little bit of itself. I'm Eddie Burns. Take care.